Right now, the labels own their community. Right now, third-party platforms that they have to use to as a intermediary, they own your community. Like TikTokers, if you get shadow banned, you've lost. TikTok owns your community. They can decide if they don't like something, they put out a shadow ban you, and all of a sudden your community doesn't see you and you don't get paid. Web3 allows you to own it. Allows you to interact directly with your community and own your community and engage with your community directly.
You're listening to Lights Camera Crypto, the podcast exploring all things entertainment and Web3. I'm your host, Stephen Ladden, and this week our guest is Corey Herscu. Corey is an independent growth and media consultant, and in this episode, he talks openly about struggling with ADHD, a traditionally perceived handicap that he was able to turn into an asset and help use it to his advantage and further his career. Around that same time, he segued from a successful sales career into that of consulting and now advises artists and companies in the Web3 space on how best to tell their story and position them for growth. Let's dive in. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
We finally made it happen, buddy.
We did. You work in media, you've done a lot of work in marketing and growth and stuff like that. As a kid, did you ever envision that would be the path your career would take? Was that did you have the skill sets early on to
No.
be to be a successful guy in that
No.
area?
Funny enough, and you would never believe this, but I wanted to be a veterinarian growing up because I had a very deep love for animals, specifically dogs. I grew up with a big dog. The dog was my best friend. It broke me when she passed away when I was like 10 years old. Like really broke me. I was just like growing up with this one dog. She came everywhere with me. She was like my buddy. And then she passed away. And I said I committed myself to being a veterinarian until I realized that you need a lot of education to get being a doctor. And I had horrible ADHD and I couldn't focus on shit. And back then, ADHD wasn't as such a conversation. Back then, my very Eastern European parents were like, how dare you say our kid might not be perfect? He doesn't need medication. You need medication. So school and I never really had a good relationship, meaning guess who's not going to become a veterinarian? So I gave up on that when I realized how much science and math was involved and I just wasn't good with theory. I fell into my career very randomly. Otherwise, growing up, no. I had zero thought. If you ask, even my parents don't even know what I do. I had absolutely zero just understanding or knowing what I would be, how I would get here, or that I would do this. Nothing. It was only recently, in the last few years, that I was fully diagnosed with ADHD and have figured out how to harness my. Some of the smartest people in the world are ADHD, but they've figured out how to harness it for the best. Unfortunately, it took me a lot longer in my life to figure that out, so I struggled a lot with a lot of things. I fell into what I do very unexpectedly. Okay?
And do you think it was understanding? Do you think it came when you started to harness the benefits of the positive of ADHD?
It came when I understood what ADHD was, and it wasn't that I was disruptive. It wasn't that I couldn't focus. It's that my mind wasn't allowing me to. Um,
Mm.
they all thought that I had a learning disability because back in 1990, when I was 6 and 7 years old, it was a learning disability. If you couldn't sit still in class, you had a disability. It was just black and white.
Sure.
So when the teacher said Corey needs to go to special education, my parents got offended by it. They helped me just scrape by. I barely made it through high school. I dropped out of college and I just went to work because I said theory and education isn't for me because I don't have the capacity to sit and learn theory I need to do.
So when that comes to career trajectory, it leads you to the space of media, space of marketing and growth. How do you make that foray into that arena?
Very good question. I worked in sales for a very long time. I did very well in sales. I burnt out at sales. I had I was working in telco, and for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what telco is, it's like working for AT&T, the Canada's version. I worked for Rogers. So one thing I had was great relationships with the brands, BlackBerry, Samsung, like the ones who make the hardware, the OEMs, as they're called. I burnt out of sales, and I'm like, I need to do something else. And I said, okay, I'm going to get into journalism because I loved reading about phones, so I'm going to learn how to write about phones now. So I got into writing about phones, which helped me go to BlackBerry World and CES and all these trade shows and just learn and meet all the people in the industry. But I very quickly learned, as many people will know, is that there's not a lot of money in media. I made all these relationships, but I didn't know how to monetize it. So I went and got a sales job selling a product. And I'm like, how do I sell a product that nobody knows about? So I went to my friends at Crackberry and Engadget and said, hey guys, what do you think of this product? And they're like, oh fuck, it's cool, we'll write about it. The product went from like 0 to 5,000 users overnight. And the CEO's, I appreciate what you did, but I don't need PR, I need sales. So I said, I enjoyed doing that. He said, you know what we'll do as a compromise? Transition out of sales, which means like leaving the job. But as a thank you, I'm going to introduce you to a lot of my friends who have similar startups who need the same help getting in front of media. I didn't know this was PR. So I started launching apps. And I had relationships, so I could guarantee App Store carousel. I could guarantee certain things that people couldn't do because I had the relationships. And I did it for 2 years, and I'm like, maybe this is my calling. And because I had a background in journalism, I went to a post grad in PR because I had a background in journalism. They let me into the post grad without any college university. I did it
Oh
for two
wow.
years. I got my diploma in PR, and I launched a business.
Wow.
And I evolved. I launched a lot of cool products, got a lot of experience, started to become known as like the wild card for people. Like they would have agencies, but then they would call me in because I could guarantee things. So it didn't matter what I was charging. The optics was I could get you onto TechCrunch. It's not like paying for TechCrunch, is that I had a relationship and I have a knack for creating stories. I have
Hmm.
a knack for turning stuff into something that could get earned media. So it's not about nepotism. It's anybody can get good coverage if you have a good story to tell. Coverage isn't the product, it's the story. And if you're
So,
good at telling stories, you can place anything.
so you're saying you were able to take a product or take something
Anything.
that nobody had awareness around and create a narrative around that product.
And then creative virality. So I worked with many products to launch them that took off because they were very well received. And so my name just started to spread. And because of my ADHD, I had a very hard time fitting into a norm of agency structure. So I wanted to go work for agencies, but nobody wanted to hire me because I'm all over the place. I had a very hard time with structure. I could get things done very quickly and then move on to the next. I wasn't good at now do this. It's not how my brain works. So I built an agency with a partner, and then I was introduced to medical cannabis, CBD. It really helped me with my anxiety and my focus.
Hmm.
Somebody said, I'm not going to give you money I was selling some office furniture. He's like, I'm not going to give you money. I'm going to give you this vape pen. Try it. And so I tried it, and it immediately made me happy and focused and calm. And people were in my office like, you're a different person. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I
Mhm.
don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I had this aha moment where I'm like, this helped me so much. Imagine other people that it would help. It's my duty to pay it forward. I have the skill set to get this out there. Cannabis is legal medically now in Canada. So it's my duty to help people be better if I could do it. So I went to my business partner and I said, run the business as a successful consumer tech PR agency. Give me 6 months, and I'm going to build out a cannabis practice. And I did that. And I spent 6, 7 months, and I built out an entire cannabis practice. Fell out
Wow.
of love with the consumer tech, bought my business partner out, rebranded, and started focusing. I still can do look, consumer tech has always been my bread and butter. I started focusing very exclusively on cannabis. The industry went like this, and then the industry went like this. When the industry went like this, I had a breakdown because I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? I put all my eggs in one basket and I have kids and a family.
Right.
So I ended up taking a job in-house at an American agency that was opening up a Canadian office, helping them scale it out, brought my clients over. From there, I was introduced to Web3, really wrapped my head around what it was and what it could do. I launched several projects that did very well. So my name started to get out there again. And again, this goes back to the narrative. You can get it in place if you have a good story. People who fail to get hit, it's because they're thinking what they want to see covered, not what the media and people want to see covered. You know what I mean? You have to put yourself into the mind of a journalist, mind of the reader, not mind of a biased CEO or a biased employee. I launch projects that help people. I consult. They'd be like, here's what we're doing. And I'm like, I still don't see what the so what is. But we're doing this. I'm like, but why do I care? You need to nail down your X factor. And so I would work with them, and people would hire me to work with them to help them define that. And once they did that, we'd go out, and all of a sudden they went from getting no coverage to all of a sudden being everywhere because they were able to define why people should give a shit. And now I'm just like still, I'm doing consulting now. I work for a bunch of projects. If someone comes to me with something cool and like I believe in it and I think it's fun, I'll jump in. I'm not being the person who I was before where it's like, gimme, gimme, gimme. Through the years, it's become very mindful of my boundaries, my capacity, my desire to be with I'm pushing 40, my energy and my desire to hang with my kids more than burn the midnight oil at both ends. And so that's led me to take on projects that mean something and are fun versus I need to have 15 projects paying me 5,000 a month. You know what I mean? And so now it's the mindset thing. And now that's where I am. What attracted me to Web3 the most? Ownership protection. A dear friend of mine is a very prolific and well-known musician, Rain Maida of Our Lady Peace. I've had the pleasure of working with him, getting to know he and his wife, Chantal Kraviazak, who is a legend in her own right. I've gotten to know them very well, gotten to work with them very well. And what got me into Web3 through Rain was helping people get paid off of their creativity,
Mm.
helping people prove ownership. And someone was like, I can call a lawyer. Most artists can barely pay rent, let alone pay a notary to prove that what's theirs is theirs. So if they can stamp it on the chain and get irrefutable proof that it's theirs, that protects their IP. That forces people to pay them. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's for everybody. I think there's been a lot of rug pulls and a lot of bad eggs have created grifts and have given, I hate using the word bad actors. I think that there's people who have gotten in for the wrong reasons and it's made other people affected, but I think there's the right people in it. There are a lot of really good people who are doing good things that help community at large. And those are the people who I want to jump in and help.
Then it sounds like you basically just took the skill set of taking a product, taking a startup, building a narrative around that, and getting eyeballs on it and getting traction to Web3 and artists. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, PR fundamentally is an ego management career. It's helping people get out of their own mind and their own bias to understand why people should care versus saying this is the best. Once you help them get out of that mindset and understand very rapidly explaining what they do and why people should care, it becomes an easy sell. 9/10 of the job of PR and marketing is the explanation. Once you nail the explanation succinctly that a 5-year-old will understand, it becomes something that people want to invest in because they understand it.
So your job has been helping people understand things in a basic form, diluted,
What
high level version.
it's taking something that's very long and making it very short. People have the attention span of goldfish. So if you get somebody's attention, maximize it in order to convert them. If you don't convert them, it's because they didn't care and you don't want them as a customer. But if you did, those are the people you have to start caring about. So it's not, we have a groundbreaking world. No, we do this and this is why. Done. Stop hyperbolizing it. Get to the point.
from that, the idea being from that place, the people who need or are interested in what you have will come.
Rather than saying if you build it, they will come, if they understand it, they will buy. You know
And
what I
so
mean?
the same, yeah, in the same way you're saying, I know you just mentioned protections. There's the legality of the blockchain and helping artists take ownership of their work. Is that the focus on, is that what drew you to Web3 in the sense of, oh, hey, I can help sell artists on blockchain technology to help take ownership of their work? Or I guess what about Web3 enticed you to dive deeper into the space as it pertained to working with artists?
It's a really good question. One, that we aren't the product anymore. We're not being. I appreciated in Web3 that it made it so consumers aren't the product. IP ownership is very important. I think that 1% of artists make money, the rest are struggling, and Web3 helps the 99% who aren't making money make money. Very few any people, and when you see successful industries, it's only the 1% who are very successful, and everybody else is struggling. Web3 spreads the wealth. Do I agree with all uses of the block? Absolutely not. I think there's a lot of people who are using the block for the wrong reasons, and not everything needs to be on the block. But there are things that do, and the block helps those industries stay valid and stay relevant. There's a very good use case. There's a product I'm working with now that is it's an affiliate network driving leads. You know what the block does? It verifies the lead. But guess what? Eradicate spam. You can't get spam leads or fake leads anymore because every single lead is validated by the block. So now you know that you're getting everything that you're getting are real people. Whether you close them is on you. But now you know you're getting real people because they're all validated. That's interesting to me because that's literally killing spam. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Right.
All industries run on affiliate networks, make the world go round. Affiliate networks are what keep people like you in having a job because it's the commission. But knowing that the right eyes are looking and it's not inflated helps you give accurate analytics to sell ad space. If you're getting 200,000 page views and 50,000 of them are bots, you're only getting 150,000 page views. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because they're not converting, it's just fake eyes. So, stuff that helps validate numbers, accuracy, monetization, IP, that's stuff that really excites me in Web3.
And what do you see Web3 and blockchain technology helping artists further their own communities in a way that
Because now
people
they're owning the community. Right
got
now,
it?
the labels own their community. Right now, third-party platforms that they have to use to as a intermediary, they own your community. Like TikTokers, if you get shadow banned, you've lost. TikTok owns your community. They can decide if they don't like something, they put out a shadow ban you, and all of a sudden your community doesn't see you and you don't get paid. Web3 allows you to own it. Allows you to interact directly with your community and own your community and engage with your community directly.
Would it also be fair to say then, because of that interactivity of directness of interacting as an artist with your community, that it's up to the artist to embody what you're talking about? Here's who I am, here's what I do.
Of
And
course.
so if they don't do that, there's you run the risk of not being
Listen,
able to grow that.
people buy with emotion. You want to know why Apple is the biggest brand in the world? Because they know how to trigger emotion. They don't make the best products in the world. Shit, their products aren't worth sometimes $2,000, $3,000. But emotionally, they're marketing geniuses. They know how to trigger you to feel like you need the next product. We are emotional creatures who buy on impulse.
Do you think that's true for every industry in commerce?
Yes, I think that's true for everything. If you can't trigger emotion, you're not going to get a customer. People have to feel like they bond with you. People have to feel like you're hitting a soft spot in them where they didn't even realize it existed. So now they want to invest in you because they want to keep that dopamine rush. They want to keep feeling that.
could it be said then the pizza dough you buy, you're at your core purchasing one brand over the other because of that emotional connection? Or could it be just as you might consume an artist in a particular moment, you just need to listen to something, so you're grabbing what's available in both
I
scenarios?
think there's both scenarios, but I think that when you're at the grocery store, if you just saw a commercial for Frank's Thin Pizza and you liked the commercial, that was emotion. You liked it. So when you go to the grocery store, you're going to recognize that brand and buy it over a brand that you haven't seen, that you haven't had the same connection with. You know what I mean? When you are watching TV, you're seeing ads, La Croix, or any of these other brands that come out of nowhere. It's because they're marketing to your emotion. So you recognize it, you relate to it, you feel for it. So the next time you want to buy it because you feel a connection to the brand.
Got it. You see something on TV and say it's an ad for a soda company and you laugh at it. You're saying because you're laughing, you're inherently engaging with the brand. And now you're more apt to make the decision to buy that soda had you not had that experience.
You just laughed at a commercial, which means that it triggered happy feelings. Next time you see that product outside, you're going to be happy because it reminds you of the time that you were happy when you saw it, and you're not going to buy it.
So is there a way that if I'm an artist and I've taken the leap, I've gone into Web3 and I'm starting to experiment with blockchain technology, and I'm growing my community, how can I, in essence, do what we just described with the soda with my community members in an authentic way?
But what are you making?
Say I'm better use case. Say I'm creating art, and
What kind of art?
I'm a digital artist, and I just because it's right here, I'm making cool renderings of plants.
Okay,
But
very easy. You want to sell your plant-based art. Are you going to go sell to people who like action sports? No, that's not your demographic. Plants, nurseries, agriculture, stuff like that. You want to get in there and show them why. Why is yours different than anybody else? You know what? We get the macro of the seed breaking open. My art documents the marriage of seed and soil. All of a sudden, people understand what makes you different in a target group as people who have the same interest in you. So now they believe in you and they want to invest in you.
that's really cool how you did that. So essentially, you do a little bit of self-reflection, think about what kind of art your creations fall into. What could, if they could be reduced into a category or a lane,
It
what would
has to
they?
be reduced to a category because then you can't be a jack of all trades, master of none. If you're
Right.
somebody who really appreciates frizzy hair, okay, that's who you are. So your art is foreheads with frizzy heads on top, okay? Who has frizzy hair? Jewish community, African American community, some Moroccan, like East African communities. You go in there and you're showing, I grew up with this kind of hair feeling like I was an outcast because nobody else had it, and I realized there's a community around me who did. So you go in there and you start selling that and saying it's an emotion. You're evoking emotion from people who feel the same way and they want to support because they grew up the same way as you. You have to not. I've seen so many projects. You're like, oh, the utility. We all know no one's cashing in on that utility. People are going to buy it and forget about it half the time. So when you're doing something, there has to be a lot more to it than that. There's got to be a rallying community around it. And this is why to me, it comes clearly to you. You're just like, holy shit, how did you do that? Because I'm not thinking from a biased perspective of you as the person who created and put your heart and soul into it. You're like, this is the best, nobody else. No, I'm taking a pragmatic approach to it. I'm removing the emotion and saying, pragmatically, why should people care? You're like, my photography skills, I invest in a really good macro. I've got the timing down for when the seedling cracks and it spreads out into the soil. Those are my shots. Those are my shots in agriculture. Does anybody else do that? Not that I know of. There you go. So now you start going to ag pubs and all these communities of nurseries and people who like planting and talk about the marriage. And it's almost like there's animal photographers who capture birth, just people who capture babies being born. You capture when the seed and the soil touch to create a plant. And you're creating this like aura and the storyline, this emotion around that marriage and how it's never been caught before, leveraging the fact that you have a special macro camera. And you put them in different colors and you show your one ofs and this and that and the other. And now all of a sudden people can be like, oh shit, maybe I want to put that into my workshop. It's a really cool shot. So they buy your NFT, and part of the utility of the NFT is that you will send them the physical print that matches it. So in their wallet, they can show it, but in their workshop at home, they have the 10 by 10 of the picture. And then if they ever resell it, you still have you get the royalty.
And really what I'm hearing you say too is artists need to really take a self-inventory quiz or assessment rather, and
Yes.
get to the bare bones of what is it that they're creating, who is it for outside of themselves, and go all in on creating it. Obviously, it has to feel good for you as the creator, but really then give it to a specific, as you're saying, a specific audience.
Yeah. And then it grows from there. Jean-Michel Basquiat was really a niche of 1% liked him. They talked about him, and then more people found out. And now he's worldwide. You're not. That's why I'm saying you can't be a jack of all trades. Your community will speak for you, but you have to create that community. And how do you create the community? By tapping into people who have like-minded interests.
And that's to bring that kind of full circle. It seems that's the value of Web3 because it's a global scale. You can eke out those community members that in previous
Mhm.
eras you weren't able to do with as much ease
and
as you can now.
and you dive into it, and you have to put the work in. You go into the spaces, you meet people, you pitch yourself, you shill, you refine it. People can't afford to have a consultant like me. That's fine too. So you have to practice. Go into things, get laughed at, take the constructive feedback, get over yourself, allow yourself to change and evolve until you master it. And you'll know you've mastered it because people are starting to understand and wanting to buy from you because you're not spending 45 minutes explaining it.
Hmm. And
Twitter spaces aren't therapy sessions. They're places to go in there and say, here's who I am, here's what I do. And the people who have really nailed down that sell and get popular are better than the ones who sit there for an hour and talk about how the world sucks, they suck, their life sucks, nobody likes them anymore because they jumped into Web3. Why should I like you if you hate yourself? Why should I invest in you if you feel like you gotta get over yourself and understand inherently what it is you're doing and why I should care. You can come in there and be like, Corey, I know that you really like glasses. I know that you love frames. You have a collection of frames. Some of my art takes different frames like you and puts them onto puppies. Shit, I like dogs. It's dogs wearing funny frames. Send me one. Maybe I'll buy it because it correlates to my interests. You know what I mean?
so why do you think as humans we overcomplicate that entire process and put more, you just said it a few times, people need to get over themselves. Is that what stands in the way from truly understanding, okay, hey, I'm creating X, I need to deliver X to people in order to support myself? Is it ego? What's the barrier that's preventing people from executing on what you just explained?
Themselves. Most of the time, it's themselves. People are scared of rejection. People are scared of no. People are scared of failure. People are scared of falling on their face. Once you get past all those fears and know that you miss every shot you don't take, first time you're going to lose. The second time you're going to lose. The third time you're going to lose. The fourth time you're going to lose. The fifth time you're going to tie. Sixth time you might win. And then all of a sudden now you've felt both sides and you know what it takes to win versus keep coming in second place, which is fine. It's part of the process. But remember I said PR was an ego game.
Yeah.
Winning, you only win when you can humble yourself because then it doesn't matter if you win or lose. You tried. And there's a lot of people who lose every day, but they appreciate the wins that they get because they know they're few and far between. You have to adapt and roll with it and learn. I had a teacher back in the day who used to tell every day to sales team, go like this, go like this, and say with
Oh,
me
you're
now.
saying to me,
Touch your nose. Say with me now. I accept my nose.
I accept my nose.
So there you go. It's a double entendre. I accept nose. 15 no's and a yes is still a yes. It's a numbers game. Cold calling, everything. It's sales, man. The only way you're ever going to get a yes is to get 1,000 no's and refine and get to a point where it's a science. The best salespeople in the world. No different than anything else. When you get into a room, my name is Steven, and I like doing degenerate frizzy hair art. Here's why I do it. Here's what the utility is. And that's it. And there's going to be people who are going to like it and not like it. But you're refining it to the point where it doesn't matter whether they like it or not. They know who you are now.
It sounds like the traditional sales model was kind of what you're talking about in terms of a numbers game, refining your pitch, refining what you're saying, and yes. And that yes, it sounds like in today's Web3 world is easier to access because there's more people who are your potential yeses that are outwardly saying, hey, I want to buy frizzy hair art. And so
Yeses aren't hard. Yeses aren't easy to come by. Yeses are very hard to come by and they take a long time to get there. The point is that you don't let it get you too cocky. You get used to no's and get comfortable with no's. So when a yes comes, it just keeps you moving for more. You want to keep replicating that dopamine rush. You know what I mean? You have to refine, refine, refine. The no turns into a yes, but instead of getting egotistical, I'm perfect. Okay, let's get another yes. Let's get another yes. Get another yes. Because you know there's always going to be more no's. The yeses matter.
that they do. So in terms of growing an artist's community and helping them succeed in Web3, what do you do on a sort of day-to-day to help an artist grow?
It's less about helping an artist grow and more about helping an artist understand what makes them different. They can create their community. Because artists are emotional beings. They're very biased. Their work is the best. Why is no one buying it? I've been through it. You know what I mean? I've been through it a lot. And the common theme, as I said, it goes back to the conversation around PR. The common theme is managing ego. A lot of what publicists do currently is they do whatever they can to close a deal. Yeah, I'll get you featured here. Yeah, I'll get you featured here. Yeah, I'll get you featured. You know what I mean? So they're setting these false expectations without having a really good understanding of what the business is and who's going to care about the story. Diving in and understanding the why and the what will allow you to understand who to go to create a narrative for them.
So what we
Go
were
ahead.
talking about with understanding, we gave the flower example and targeting people who like flowers and arborists and stuff like that, knowing who your audience is, it sounds like is a vitally important aspect.
Listen, you guys, think of it this way. For you to be successful in what you do, personally, you need to know who to book for the show.
Sure.
Otherwise, your boss is going to say, if you can't do it properly, I'm going to find somebody else to do it properly. That's just the economics and how the world works.
Sure.
So you have to bring in the right people to be in your circle who believe in what you're doing and know what they're doing. So you're not going to hire a tech PR agency to do cannabis PR. You're not going to hire a fashion PR to do blockchain because they don't. It's not only like they don't understand it, but they're not immersed in it. So to be successful, not only do you have to understand, but you have to be in it. You have to be in the spaces. You have to know the right people. It takes a long time to get placed on Business Designer, man. There's 4,000 other outlets. You know what I mean? You have to live it. Part of what I used to do is spending after the gym in the morning an hour, 2 hours sitting in spaces, getting to know people. You know what I mean? Really getting to know people. It's there's a lot that goes in.
Yeah. And it sounds like what you're also doing at your core is applying, in some ways too, the sales background to just the artist space and identifying and helping create the stories that you were helping, as you mentioned, with, say, Blackberries and stuff like that, creating narratives around the artists themselves or helping those artists tell the story of who they are and what they do and why they do it.
Exactly. So I worked with an artist named Thrush Holmes. He had a drop, like very successful artist in his own right. He had a drop that did really well. He's like, let's do it again, this time with generative instead of boxes. That one, I'm not saying it didn't do well, it sold out, But in terms of like success, it wasn't deemed as successful as others might be. And it really hurt his ego. Like, am I a failure? Am I an imposter? No, not everything are going to be built the same. Not everybody can have the capability to be overly successful all the time. You know what I mean? And that's an ego thing. That's setting expectations, and that's just like really setting precedents and just understanding that things take time and people buy on emotion with people who they relate to. People want to work with people who they feel are human. People buy what they connect with. That's all just basic. Like at the end of the day, that's all just basic.
And do you think people can sniff out when something doesn't feel human, when it feels artificial, when it feels...
So then that's where ignorance comes into play. They can, they're not.
I'm not following.
If you don't humanize what you're doing, no one's going to believe in it. The Twitter spaces that are the most successful are the ones where the people are really themselves and they're not watering down their brand for the sake of engagement farming. They're them. You like it or you don't. Period. You need to humanize what it is that you're doing in order for people inherently want to like other humans. You humans are emotional beings. That's why I'm saying you have to humanize the brand. Apple is the most humanized brand in the world. People buy into it. It is the most valuable brand because people emotionally feel the need to have it. They believe in the brand. They believe in the feeling. They want to go and stand inside an Apple store even though there's nothing there. They don't care about the prices. But
Yeah.
it's a humanized brand. People don't feel like they're walking into fucking Target. They're walking into an Apple store and they feel happy to walk into an Apple store. They want to buy something from an Apple store because people there aren't force feeding them a sale. They're there to help them. They're showing them that I'm a human just like you.
Just like the Genius Bar, you walk into that store, that's a great example. And there is, there are an assortment of folks provided, whether or not you've made a reservation, you can go in there and it's a service helping you with whatever it is that you do and whatever you use their technology for. So I think to your point, it's like, it's so essentially what you're saying is taking that humanizing aspect that we just established Apple does well and applying that to whatever community you're building on Twitter or whatever digital outlet is for you and your art or music or what have you.
Exactly. You know what's a good example of this, man? And I hate calling, like, there's people who just, I hate calling names. I'm not going to name names. That's just not my MO. But there's people who you know that they're being genuine with what they do. So you want to inherently help them. There's people who you know are grifters. You don't want to help them. Period. There's no secret or magic to it. It's just who do you gravitate to? If I go on Twitter, there's people who are going to naturally jump into a space and hear me speak because they like me. If I ever jumped into a project and said, I'm on this, I believe in it, people will buy it because they trust me. It doesn't even matter what it is, it's my influence. So what's going on right now in Twitter spaces and Web3 is that people are leveraging their influence and often for ingenuine reasons. You know what I mean? They're being paid and not disclosing it, and then they're like, "What do you mean it was a rug pull? Did you look into it? Are you lying because they paid you, or are you lying because you believe in it?" And then they don't want to be called out, and then it creates. So that's where the issue has been in Web3. It's pump and dump scams with like public companies and stuff. It all comes back to the humans that believe and trust in a brand or a person or a project, and the people who remember the NFT fiasco.
Yes.
I was part of the people who took them down.
Really?
Yes. My friend was the beat writer for Web3 and NFTs at Rolling Stone. Eric Spivak is a very close friend of mine. I said, I won't go on the record because I'm by no means an expert, but you need to talk to Eric Spivak. I connected them. The story went out. They got banned. Period. Because it was bothering me fundamentally that I was sitting in rooms every day of people crying that they invested their hard earned money into these projects that were being pumped by the page, and they didn't know it was rug pulls, and they weren't disclosing that these people were paying for promo. Further, I was at a dinner in Las Vegas where somebody was like, yeah, because he was wearing like a one of one Chrome Hearts jacket and a diamond encrusted watch. I'm like, dude, you're 21 years old. Where do you have $20,000 to do that? And he says to me, I made a lot of money in Web3. I'm like, elaborate. He says, oh, I created a rug pull. I paid $50,000 to NFT to promote it. We made $3.5 million in 3 days, and then we shut it down.
It's gross.
Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, I just want to let you know that I have zero respect for you. And he says, the fuck do you mean you have zero respect for me? I'm like, wearing a diamond encrusted Rolex and a Chrome Hearts jacket and a Chrome Hearts hat doesn't make you earn respect. What you just said to me is that you robbed from people for your own personal gain. Only you robbed people. There's no difference from what you did. They said, if you robbed the bank has insurance, I don't lose money from you robbing a bank. That's them losing cash. What you just did is you use the power of Web3 for greed. Because you know that there's no intermediary to protect people.
Right.
Yes, there's a do your own research, but NFT was supposed to be a trusted source of information. So what I'm trying to say to you is that there is very much in Web3 the element of DYOR and know what you're getting into, but there's also a level of inherent trust when you go into it that people you're listening to, you're going to believe because they're humans that a lot of people want to believe the best in people. You know what I mean? That's it.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is like in the example you just gave, there are some, just like in any industry or field or medium, that will play on the generosity and trust of folks for perhaps less than ideal purposes.
The short answer is yes. There's a lot of people online and they can do them, and I'm not calling any names out because I don't care. What people do, karma will get them for. But there's people who are on Twitter and doing stuff for ingenuine purposes. And I'm saying that people need to be careful because and I didn't mean to go down this rabbit hole. The point of what I'm trying to say with anything is people act and make decisions very emotionally. So it's very hard in Web3 because you don't have protection from that emotion. You wear your heart on your sleeve, you impulse, click a link to buy an NFT without realizing that's a phishing scam and you just lost $1,000 and there's nobody to go to. You have to be very careful because it's the Wild West. It's like walking outside with a briefcase full of millions of cash and hoping you don't get robbed. There's no difference.
And in this case, I think to tie it back to what we were saying before with artists, it's like you want to create that community, but you want to have a positive ethos to it. And because it goes against the grain of what Web3 and a decentralized way of existing in the world is all about.
Exactly.
On that tip, what can you speak to that you have coming up in terms of folks you're working with, projects you're working with?
Inbound leads, but like for affiliate market, but verified by the block. So there's basically zero spam. Every single inbound lead is validated by the block so that there can't be, it negates all spam, all fake leads, so that when you're signing up as a salesperson of anything and you want inbound, every inbound coming in is real. Whether it's cold or warm is on you, but it's not spam. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm working on. A dear friend of mine, as people know who Richie Rich is on Twitter, Josh Anderson. I support everything he does. I think he's a genius. I think he's very good at what he does. And anything he puts his mind to, he calls me and says, what do you think? And I'm shutting him out because I'm very happy to support anything he does. Same with Jacob Lee, lowly lyricist. I've worked with him for a very long time. I love him like a brother because the guy hustles every single fucking day. Projects that I'm working on, not many. I've been really focused on non-Web3 projects lately. Web3 projects that I have been, it's more on consulting, advising. Brian Mossoff's Ether Capital, I talk a lot to him. But I haven't been immersed in like NFT projects or stuff like that because I just haven't been. There's no reason for it. I just haven't been. I need to work on things that I'm passionate about and I believe in. I can't just work on it. Anybody can take 30, 40, $50,000 to work on something. I need to work on something that I believe in.
Mm.
And a lot has come my way and not saying I don't think it's great. It's just not for me.
Right on. Corey, I really appreciate you dropping all of the knowledge that you have today. I think it's been really insightful for artists and non-artists alike, anyone who's interested in building a community, anyone who's interested in attempting to grow an audience. You've brought up some really great points as to how to do that and some really great insights. And also on that tip, just how to be a better person, whether you're building a community or not.
Toxicity is a cancer. Be positive, help people, help without expectation, do without, and things turn out. It might not be today or tomorrow, but it will.
And on that tip, where can people find you?
Twitter, on my name Corey Herscu, CoreyHerscu. Instagram, it's Herscu.
Love it. Corey Herscu, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Lights, Camera, Crypto, a podcast produced by Matt Bogart and Decential Media. Music by Brian Duncan and Kareem Imes. If you enjoyed this experience, be sure to rate and subscribe to our show and to follow @Sladden and @Decential Media for additional content.